Hi, my name is Susie Lander, and this is my response to the professor's question on dual relationships and boundaries, standard of care and termination. And my question was about the landscape and lawn care facts that they entered, and about what are the ethical implications for such an arrangement. And so I watched and then read through the manuscript transcript of the conversation between all the people involved in that conversation. And I found it really interesting to kind of dig through that and kind of figure out, whether that was against the code of ethics or whether that was ethical practice and legal, or what we should or shouldn't do as far as that was concerned. Basically, the case that they were presenting was there was a guy who was trying to go to counseling with this counselor, and as a client, he was unable to pay because he didn't have the money. And so, was it ethical for him to offer his practice, offer his services as far as being able to mow her lawn at her house and say, okay, well, I will mow your lawn at your house if you will give me X amount of hours for free of counseling? And so it said technically, as far as bartering was concerned, then maybe that was okay. But, then when did it push the lines? When did it become unethical practice and exploitation and turn into exploitation? So when does it cross the line and him begin to say, okay, well, I don't think she liked what I did. And so I'm going to have to do better. I want to do better. I need to please her. And so all of a sudden he's doing things to try and please and make her happy, or him, depending on what sex the counselor is. And so now his services have been exploited because he's having to do things to make the counselor happy. And so it's all the lines of the dual relationship have been crossed, and it's damaged the counseling relationship. And so, yes, technically, it may be okay for him to be able to render services to her, and for them to make that type of exchange, but oftentimes it can become an ethical practice. And so, if you want to go by technicalities in the beginning, it could be legal and it could be ethical practice, but I guess my thoughts are anything that could ever lead to something unethical, then I would just tend to think, let's avoid it altogether. And so I looked up some of the ACA codes on the ACA code websites to verify some of the codes that would be violated if they did follow through on this practice. And so some of them were A6B, extending counseling boundaries, and that was counselors consider the risks and benefits of extending counseling relationships beyond just normal parameters, and they gave the example of purchasing services or products provided by client. And then A6C was documenting boundary extensions, and that was just basically saying that if you had violated A or B, then C was, how had you documented it? Had you documented that well? And so, if you've already violated B, you probably haven't done a great job documenting it. And then also the other one was A10E, which was on bartering. And that basically says counselors may barter only if the bartering does not result in exploitation, which is what I talked about earlier, or harm if the client requests it, and if such arrangements are on acceptable practices among professionalism in the community. Counselors consider the cultural implications of bartering and discussing relevant concerns with clients, and document such agreements in a written format. And it goes on to talk about that, but basically just, have you done everything to make sure that you haven't crossed that line. And a lot of times, in my opinion, because you're dealing with mental things, I'm afraid that you might end up crossing that line. And so you can always go to the ACA website and look at the Code of Ethics, and that will give you additional codes that you could find that match that. But those were the main ones that I found, and I hope I did a good job answering this question. Thank you so much. Goodbye.